Hello, my name is Phil Easter, historian and writer from Baltimore, Maryland, also known as the Amazing Memory Man. We're recording tonight on Sunday, February 25th, 2024. This is story number 47 on my YouTube channel, which is Phil Easter, the Amazing Memory Man. Yesterday marks exactly 2 years since Russia's war on Ukraine began on February 24th, 2022. This is actually the second story I've done about this because back in October of 22, about 8 months after the war began, I did the first story that year, and now we're just over 2 years into the war, and President Vladimir Putin of Russia still has his armies attacking Ukraine, and the United States and other allies are, however, determined to give Ukraine necessary help, military aid, to fight the Russians. The Russians have a history of invading many countries. In 1939, in September, shortly after Hitler invaded Poland and took at least much of the western half of Poland, on September 17th, 1939, Stalin ordered Russian forces to invade the eastern part of Poland. A few months later, in December, they invaded Finland and killed at least 100 people in Helsinki, the capital. Years later, in 1956, the Soviet Union invaded Hungary. Now, Hungary was one of the communist countries allied to the Soviet Union, but still it was a separate country. It was not part of the 16 republics that made up the Soviet Union at that time, and still they invaded Hungary when people of that country were struggling for more freedom. And in 1968, Russian tanks rolled into Czechoslovakia when a certain freedom movement in that country began. Again, that was a communist country allied to the Soviet Union, but not one of the 16 republics that made up the Soviet Union. In 1991, the Soviet Union broke up, and the 16 republics each became a separate independent country, including Ukraine. But for some reason, Vladimir Putin has this idea that the Ukrainians were, in his opinion, had something to do with the Nazis of World War II, because some Ukrainians were part of that at that time, many years ago, but just some, It's just ridiculous that he's telling the Russian people how they're threatened by Ukraine, a much smaller country, and continues this terrible war, which has caused so much devastation to many parts of Ukraine. And he keeps attacking various cities, and even though the Russians right now control somewhere around 10 or 15% of the country directly, but they're still attacking other parts of the country too. But recently, the leaders of the G7 nations agreed that we must continue to support Ukraine and give them the help necessary to fight Russia. And of course, as all of you know, just about 10 days ago, a great opposition leader to Vladimir Putin, Alexei Navalny, died in prison under questionable circumstances. And he was a brave man who opposed Putin for many years regarding the suppression of human rights within Russia and the various corruptions of the Putin administration. So sadly, we're really technically into the third year at this point of the war. But it's important for the United States, Great Britain, and other allies to continue to support the people of Ukraine in their struggle to become a free nation once again. It's just a very sad thing that's going on, and we would hope somehow Putin can be convinced to stop this, but he seems just to be bent on continuing the war. It's also rather disgusting that a major candidate for president of the United States, former President Donald Trump, just a few weeks ago, indicated that if NATO countries don't contribute more financially to the overall NATO organization, they should not continue to have our protection. And he said that Russia can do anything they want. That is such an irresponsible statement from a former president regarding our alliance with NATO countries, where if one is attacked, it's considered an attack on all. And of course, Poland borders Ukraine, and Poland is a NATO country. I only hope that this war could end before the third anniversary comes next year, but it's going to take a lot of determination by people to continue to support Ukraine, and I hope the U.S. Congress will come through soon and give the necessary funds to help the people of Ukraine in their war against Russia. This is Phil Easter. We'll see you next time, another story on another subject. Thank you and good night.